Well, ladies, we are live. And what you're listening in on, if you're here, is a fun conversation about our guest's last name. So, welcome to this week's event of Crazy Writer Chicks. This is week 27, or I think we decided we were going to start renumbering this year. So year number 2, week episode 2. Just easier that way. So my name is Nikki Rome. Once again, I have got Rebecca White and Winter Navi with me this week, and we have a very special guest with us, Kristie Kolzing, with a very unique last name from Align and Design Your Life. Hey, Kristine, thanks so much for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate the time that you're kind of pulling aside. So let's just jump right into it. I know she also has a very special date tonight with a little boy in a Harry Potter book. So we get ourselves ready and done on time. We don't want to disappoint children in our lives. Right. So Kristine, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and let you kind of kick us off a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business as well. And we'll kind of go from there.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation and to connect with all of you. I'm very grateful and very honored to do so. My business is Align and Design Your Life. And we are a mindset and business coaching program for women entrepreneurs, mainly women entrepreneurs in the online space. My business was born out of a desire to serve women entrepreneurs at a different level. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 24. This is actually my 4th business. And my business previous to this was in network marketing, where I had a very successful career and found that what I really loved about that business was the personal coaching I was doing with the women on my team. And I found that beyond teaching them sales and products, what I really loved teaching them was mindset, because the journey of entrepreneurship is not an easy one. And the moment that you step into something so unfamiliar, a lot of stuff comes up. A lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of old stories, a lot of past events. And there's just a lot that comes up for us. And we need the ability to work through that if we want to have success in our business. And so I just found myself diving deeper and deeper into the mindset work, getting all sorts of certifications as a mindset coach, and then decided to start coaching people outside of my team. So I launched my business somewhat softly at the end of 2019. And then actually in February of 2022, I started bringing aboard my first clients in the Align and Design Your Life program. And that pandemic hit a month later, and it was a really amazing opportunity to build an online business. And so in the last 2 years, we've had a very successful run. I have a wonderful team supporting me, and we've been able to steward about 50 clients through our program. At this point, it's a year-long course and program with lots of hands-on coaching. And we're in the process right now of creating more in our program around the nuts and bolts, the foundations of building a business. Because we've found that a lot of women entrepreneurs are able to find help when it comes to marketing and sales. But when it comes to really building the foundations, the systems, the processes, how to hire, how to manage your time, that seems to be lacking a lot in the online space. So we've been creating a whole new set of a whole new component of our program to address that problem so that we can really support our clients to build the businesses that they want, the businesses that help them to live out their purpose and also to support themselves and their families. I'm really, really passionate about women having their own stream of income, their own way of supporting themselves, whether they're in a relationship or not. I just think it's really important for women to know that they can support themselves. And so I'm really passionate about helping women do that in a way that feels good and is fun. Sometimes entrepreneurship can be a lot of hustle and long hours, and it can feel really lonely and tough. But when you have a supportive community and you have the tools, you can ease a lot of that hustle and the loneliness and the struggle and really make your business what you want it to be.
Could you tell us a little about, or maybe a lot about, the mindset part of that too? Like, I imagine that the nuts and bolts part will be particular to each person and what they're doing. But as far as mindset, could you tell us about like how that works and what's involved in that?
Yes, absolutely. That's really the core component of our program, because that's where I started, is as a mindset coach. We've just added on more as we see the needs of our clients evolving. We've been able to evolve our program and bring them more of what they need. So I always like to say that becoming an entrepreneur is like ripping off a Band-Aid you didn't know you were wearing. Like the moment you step into this unfamiliar territory, the subconscious mind starts to freak out, right? So one of the main one of the main directives of the subconscious mind is to keep you alive, right? It beats your heart, it breathes your lungs, it does the cell division, like it just wants you to stay alive. And when you have been used to living and thinking and feeling a certain way for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, the subconscious mind goes, "Oh, that's who she is in her survival. That's who she is when she's alive." So when you step out of that familiar way of being and into something new, something unknown, right? And with that comes, it's a little scary, it's a little exciting, right? But there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And the subconscious mind goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. That doesn't feel familiar. That, I don't know about that. That feels scary. You know what? You should just stay right where you are, because this is what's safe and this is what we know." And so that all of that stuff, so the self-doubt, the lacking confidence, the questioning yourself, the limiting beliefs, the stories that you were told when you were younger, the experiences that you had, all that stuff starts coming up, right? Because you're creating this space between where you've always been and where you want to be. And there are things that need to be dealt with there and removed and released and looked at, and creating awareness around that. So we have a number of techniques that we use in our program, including the realign process, which is a process that we've created and we use to help you to choose your new outcomes, how you want to be, really recognize what's standing in the way of you just being there now, and then being able to take the action to get there. We also use meditation. We use some NLP techniques like time techniques and parts integration. And then we also use the Enneagram as our jumping off point for really creating deep self-awareness, because with awareness, we can change, right? When we're aware of our limiting patterns, our limiting thoughts, the places we get stuck, then we have the power to choose a different way of thinking or feeling or acting. And so, that's a big part of what we do, because it really all starts with mindset.
Hi. Okay.
Hi.
So our very first live show was about imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And I'm sure you've dealt with women who suffer with that or struggle with that. My
Mhm.
question is, I'm sure women come in initially with imposter syndrome and then they go through a revamp, and then the challenges don't stop. They just change. Do they go through another process or time of imposter syndrome that's slightly different, and how do you teach them to manage both times?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'd say, yeah, absolutely. For most people, every time you set a new goal or a new outcome, there's something new that you want to achieve. There's resistance that comes up that's related to that outcome, right? And so once you recognize that that's normal, that's natural, you're never going to completely get over or let go of all the resistance. But when you have the tools to deal with it, it's like, oh, okay, of course this is coming up, right? So say, for example, as a new entrepreneur, you're like, I've never done this before. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just know that I have something I want to share with the world. And it's important for me to give this a go and see what's possible. Right. And you get out there and you start posting on social media, or you see what other people are doing, and that imposter syndrome comes up, and it really looks like judging yourself. Like, I don't know enough. Other people know more than me. I'm new at this. Other people have been doing this longer. It's a lot of comparing, right? And it's a lot of devaluing yourself before you've even started, right? Like, I don't know enough. I don't have enough degrees. I wasn't born to do this. I don't, right? So we tend to talk ourselves out of our success unknowingly. But if you can stick with it, if you can recognize that, right, and continue the journey, continue taking action, maybe you start to build that business, and suddenly now you are bringing in clients on a consistent basis. Maybe you're making some decent income, and now you start setting your sights on maybe that first 6-figure year, right? Well, that's something you've never done before, right? So you set your sights on that, and then suddenly those same thoughts come up, like, I've never done that before. Other people doing this have been here longer than me. Maybe I need more credentials in order to do that. Am I capable of getting there? It's always going to arise. Every time we set our outcomes on a new level, the resistance is going to arise. And that's okay. I think the problem that I see a lot of women have is that stuff comes up, and then they let that stuff be their truth, when none of that is true, right? That's just old stories. It's old patterns. It's old beliefs. And any and all of that can be rewired in the mind. There are processes that you can use to actually disconnect those old thoughts and beliefs and create new beliefs and thoughts that really serve you on the path to where you want to go.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like me and Becca have spent a lot of time within different groups, and we had Pearl Project on, remember, and they talk a lot about rewiring for dealing with trauma. And it's funny because a lot of what you're saying, these like creating new pathways and overcoming these things, it's similar to the same type of stuff that we do when we deal with children with trauma or overcoming trauma as adults and so forth. It is a mindset for some of this stuff, and others it's become their truth, and they don't, you hit those stops, you hit those walls. And so taking a different approach, I don't know, it's funny. It just strikes me how strange the similarities are there.
Yeah.
Because I think that.
It can be really helpful for people who are wanting something in their life, knowing that these mindset blocks are holding them back, to know that there's a reason for it, and it's not because there's something wrong with them. Right? It's because as we're growing up, we're children trying to make sense of an adult world that doesn't always make sense. And we don't have all the information. So we do the best that we can to try to figure it out, right? And we come up with beliefs and ideas about ourselves and the world that help us to cope, to help us to get by, to help us survive. And those things are really valuable for us at that time. The problem is we don't know how to question those things, right? To understand if those thoughts we have about ourselves and the world are actually true. And so they just become a part of our wiring. They become a part of the way we see the world. And then often when we're faced with a new challenge in life, something unfamiliar like starting a business, those things come back up, and it's time to deal with them so that you can see what's really true for you, right? If you had a belief as a kid that in order to be loved, that you had to be successful, right? A's on the papers, gold stickers, that you had to be head of the class. If you made a correlation as a kid, like, oh, if I get an A on my paper, mom and dad are really happy with me. Success equals love and acceptance. I'm just going to keep being the best. It's a completely unconscious connection being made in the mind, but that it will help you to strategize and cope and get by, right? And get the love and acceptance that you're really wanting from, say, your parents or your teachers or your peers. And then you continue that belief, like, I must be successful in order to have love and acceptance on an unconscious level. Now you're in overdrive, right? You are working all the time. You can't, even if you achieve a level of success, you're just looking at the next one. There's no like celebrating who you are, and you become your successes, right? You start to see life through the lens of your successes. If I'm successful, then I'm worthy of love and acceptance, right? And so now that coping mechanism is in overdrive, and it's going to lead to burnout and exhaustion and disconnection from your true self, because now you've become your successes, right? And so all of those things with creating awareness, like, oh, I'm in a space where I'm really overdoing it. I have packed my schedule. I am working too much. I'm feeling the burnout coming. I need to take a break and recognize that it's okay to just be me and not have to be my successes, right? And there's an actual rewiring that you can do of the mind, because that thought, I need to be successful in order to get love and acceptance, that didn't come with you when you came into this time-space reality, right? Babies don't think that way. Mm-hmm. Right? So at some point that thought, I was like my little thought,
created.
Like two little neurons came together, created this thought. A lot of times thoughts come together and then they disappear, right? But if that thought gets thought and thought and thought and thought and thought, it suddenly becomes a very strong pathway, becomes a really strong neurological pathway. And so your mind starts to go into autopilot. And this just becomes your default way of thinking and seeing the world. With awareness and with practice, you can actually begin to disengage that thought and create a new thought that will support you. You can choose thoughts that will empower you and support you in your journey of life. And as you're focusing on creating those new thoughts, those old thoughts begin to fade away. It's that principle, if you don't use it, you lose it. Right? If you've ever had your arm in a cast or your leg in a cast and you get the cast off and the muscles are much smaller, right? Because you couldn't use them. If you're not entertaining those old beliefs, they start to lose their power. And as you focus on those new beliefs, your new identities, your new ways of thinking and feeling, those begin to strengthen. And over time, you're able to move away from those disempowering thoughts and into empowering thoughts. That becomes your new default way of being. Right?
Can
And
I
now
ask? Oh,
anything's
sorry. Go ahead.
possible. No, go ahead.
Tanya on Facebook would like me to read this.
Oh,
She
great.
says, survivor of childhood abuse here, eventually diagnosed with complex PTSD as a result. How can those who never had a space to explore themselves do so as an adult? And then she added, no identity formed in childhood because of the trauma crisis / survival.
Did she say no identity?
Yeah, she feels like she didn't have an identity formed because of the trauma and things that happened in childhood.
Yeah. I would say, and I say this to my clients, find a good therapist. A therapist can really help you to create that space and to help you begin to rewire the mind. It's a little bit beyond the scope of what I do in my coaching practice. But even if we don't feel like we have an identity, we do. Every one of us has a personality, our way of seeing the world. And it's unique to us, and it is formed through our life experience. We have a particular way of seeing ourselves and others, the world in general. And that doesn't necessarily change. That doesn't completely change. Like as someone who is that achiever type, who has equated success with love and acceptance, there are parts and aspects of that way of thinking that will always be a part of me. And I can honor that, and I can be grateful for that, and I can lean into the strengths of that without letting it run my life and overdo it. So I would say to her, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, and find a therapist that can help you navigate through letting go of that trauma, or releasing it and reframing it and bringing it into an empowering place for you.
She says, okay, she continues. She says, I've done a lot of work with my therapist.
Okay.
But I don't even know where to start with what truly makes up my likes and dislikes of who am I.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds kind of like an Enneagram question to me.
It really sounds like
Maybe.
an Enneagram question. Yeah, it'd be super fun to do an Enneagram typing and just understand your Enneagram type, because that is really what I'm talking about when I say we all have a lens or a way of seeing the world. It's sort of like every morning, there's 9 pairs of glasses sitting on the dresser, and I always pick up the ones that allow me to see the world through the type 3 lens. I see the world through the lens of the doer, the achiever, right? And I can't not see the world this way, right? But I can notice I'm wearing the glasses, right? That I can have awareness that this is a particular way of seeing the world, and that other people have a different way of seeing the world. If you've grown up in a traumatic home experience, you figured out ways to cope and strategize and get by and survive, right? And that is what began to determine your personality, right? So that sounds to me like could be a personality type that's more focused on the needs of others, right? Because the needs of others probably were the focal point of the family and of the house, and having those needs met so that things didn't go too out of control. That's a coping mechanism. That's a strategy, right? And if that has been her way of seeing the world, right, then she's probably lost touch with her
That's
own
a coping
needs
mechanism.
and
That's a
wants,
strategy.
right? If we're more in tune with the needs and wants of others, we tend to be less in tune, or not even know how to get in tune with our own needs and wants.
Sorry, guys. I was clicking on the comments and didn't have the volume down. That was the better. Trying to see if I missed anything. I think you bring up some really great points. It's funny is you talk about rewiring success. And so I've reached this point in my life where I'm trying to redefine what success is, because I never really considered there was a way to rewire that. Like I figured that was always going to be part of me. But what I had equated success to was my parents' belief. Go figure. Because that's what I was told, right? If you make a lot of money, if you own a lot of fancy things and you have a big bank account, that is successful. And I've gotten to this point. I keep telling everybody it's like a switch flipped when I turned 40, and I'm like, I don't care about any of that anymore, right? And so now like my new vision of success is very different. It's like I'm finally starting to own what's important to me. And so I'm curious with some of your clients, is the conversation always, is it always that success doesn't have to be your only driving factor, or is it sometimes really just like, what is it? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people like Tanya or even myself who were like at this point and I'm like, I don't know what my motivator is. I don't know what success is to me. Or definitely, I know it wasn't what it was.
Yes, right.
Especially when you're making this shift from, a traditional work environment to becoming an entrepreneur. Something had to have kicked in there. And I know, especially since the pandemic, we've seen loads of people, especially women, open businesses that they never really would have considered before, which I think is great. But I also think a lot of them may feel as if they were pushed into it. And so I'm just curious what you've seen with your clients over the last, crazy 2 years.
Yes. I love that you talked about that, really choosing what success looks like for you. And choosing is a big part of our program, and really recognizing how much choice we actually have in our lives, because that's not something we're taught. We are not taught that we have choice in our lives, right? As kids, someone else is choosing what you eat, what you wear, when you go to bed, what school you go to, who gets invited to your birthday party. Like, there's not much choice in life when you're a kid, right? And like you said, you learn from your parents kind of the path, right? And most of us, we do one of two things. We go exactly along that path, or we go the opposite of that path, right? We are just like our parents, or we are a polar opposite of them, right? And either way, we've been given through our parents, through our schools, through our community, through our politicians, through the media, these certain ideas about success that may or may not align with who we truly are, right? And when we get to a point in our lives where we are able to choose what success looks like for us, then we have a clear path to create it. And success could be financial, right? It could be X amount of money in the bank. Success could be the type of business that you want to have. Success could be spending time with your family, right? Success could be creating community amongst other creatives, right? We get to define it for ourselves. And I think the moment that you do that for yourself, you're in the driver's seat, right? You get to be the one who's choosing, does this, each thing that happens in your life, does this align with what success feels like to me, or does it not? Right? When we know what it is that we want, when we're clear about that, it makes decision making so much easier, right? Either this aligns with that or it doesn't. So I take this path or I don't. And sometimes it just takes really sitting with yourself and asking those questions. And that can be really hard sometimes. Like, I grew up in a family where like monetary or material or financial success was not valued, right? Success was being a good humanitarian. It was doing work that impacted others, right? My dad was, my mom and my dad both worked in professions where they were, generously helpful to others, but they didn't make a lot of money. Right. And so I saw us going through times in our life where we had to choose between getting to go on a summer vacation or having to make repairs around the house. We never went on spring break. We didn't go anywhere for Christmas. I saw my friends doing that, but that wasn't, and that for me, my sister took the same path that they did. I went the opposite way. I was like, this isn't what I want. I grew up in the 80s. So it was like, I want the money and the fame and that was success for me. But as I've matured and really tuned in, like, is that what I wanted? Or is that what, society at large said
A
would get me
reaction.
the love and acceptance, right?
Yeah.
So now it's a combination, right? Success for me is having a thriving business because it means I'm making impact in the world. And being successful also means making impact in the world and being able to support myself and my family through my business, right? So the ideas of success, we really have to ask ourselves what that is. And it was a little scary for me at first to let go of the idea that success just meant, financial or material things. And that it really was a broader sense of success that included my health and my relationships and my spiritual and personal growth.
I feel like a lot of things have to come with experience. Like, I'm almost 43, and I'm thinking, how much of what was really important to me 25 years ago, or even 15 or 10 years ago, was important to me because it really was important to me, and how much of it was important to me because that was my environment and what was supposed to be important to me.
Right.
And I tend to be very influenced just in general by whatever's around me. So it really was important to me. Like, I wouldn't have been lying, and I wasn't lying when I was like, this is important. This is what I want to do. But then getting out of that environment and experiencing other environments and going new places, meeting different kinds of people has helped me broaden like my ability to make choices. Because I don't think I could have made a choice to do something different at that time because I just didn't have the scope for it like I do now. So now and then I think, well, in 5 years or 10 years, what will my scope be, right? Like, what other choices will I be able to make? But I don't know, that kind of what Tanya said made me think about that too, like not really knowing. You don't know what you don't know until you are exposed to new things.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's really important to you until you see other options, like, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love that you're reflecting back on your life and what was important to you with such a lovely sense of non-judgment, right? Because we're doing the best we can in every moment, right? We are doing the best we
I must
can.
say
with
that 10 times a day.
Yes, because it's true. We have
She
to
says
give
it about
ourselves
other
that
people too.
grace.
She's like, I'm sure they were just doing the best they can. Like that has become Becca's mantra this year.
It really has.
It
It
is.
really has.
They really are. And sometimes their best is not great. Sometimes my best is not great, but in
Say
that
that too.
moment, that is the best I can do, right? And we're also making choices in each moment with the information we have at that time, right? So your 25-year-old self only has the information that your 25-year-old self has, right? Your 45-year-old self is going to have a lot more information, a lot more life experience, a lot more wisdom from others that they can then use to make a new choice or to decide what's important at that phase in your life. I really do think I'd love to see this shift, hopefully by the time this pertains to me, but I really do think that there's so much wisdom in our elders, right? But we unfortunately live in a society that really values youth and what youth looks like, and we discount the wisdom that comes with being on this planet for longer. Right? Because as we're here longer, we're gathering those experiences, we're gathering more information, we're seeing how our choices maybe have affected the path that we're on, and if we're lucky, we get to be one of the people who understands that we have the power to choose, right? We have the power to choose our thoughts, to choose our feelings, and to choose the next action we take. And that's truly where becoming the creator of your life, that's where all of your power resides.
We've got
Hi,
some
guys.
comments from some of the girls. Oh, sorry, Winter. Give yourself grace, Deborah says, and our best is acceptable from Tanya. So they all agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, Winter, go ahead.
No, you're good. So I'm curious with the mindset, and you have people that are coming in with all different life experiences, all different things, way of thinking and seeing the world. But I'm curious as to what is the most common theme you see in most of your clients that everybody tends to need to work on.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the reasons that we use the Enneagram as a main component of our program is that when we know someone's personality type and the way they see the world, we're really tuned in to the unique perspective they have and the unique mindset challenges that come along with that perspective. But across the board, I'd say that the main challenges that we see the women in our community have is doubting themselves and really doubting in a lot of ways, doubting if they're worthy of the success that they want, doubting they can make it happen, doubting if it's the right path for them when it starts getting hard, and along with that, one of the other main themes that we see with people who come into our program is a lack of confidence because they're doing something they've never done before, right? When you're a kid, you do all sorts of things you've never done before and you don't think twice about it, right? When you're learning how to walk, you're not like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get this thing. I don't know if it's meant for me. I don't know if I'm worthy of learning how to walk. I don't know if I deserve it. You're just like, you fall on your butt and you get back up, and you fall on your butt and you get back up. But somewhere along the line, right, through our adolescence, through our development, we start to take on these ideas that we somehow aren't capable, or we're not worthy, or we're not deserving. And so we step into something unfamiliar or new, and there's a real lack of confidence. We've never done it before. We don't know what to expect. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so we work a lot on developing that internal confidence through both the mindset work, but also through really practical things like a habit tracker, right? You can build internal confidence by being in integrity with yourself. Right. If you set some habits each month that will help you to reach your various outcomes. So we set outcomes for our businesses, for our health, for our relationships, and our personal and spiritual development, because we're not just entrepreneurs. It's one aspect of who we are. We set outcomes in all 4 areas, and then we decide on 1 or 2 habits that will move us in the direction of these outcomes. And we track it. And what we find is that when our clients are setting these habits and these outcomes, and they're taking consistent action, and it's little steps, it's little step leads to big results. What they find is that they develop a trust in themselves, right? I said I was going to do this, and I did it, right? And the more that you do that, the more you develop that internal confidence. I think a lot of women are looking for their business to be successful before they have confidence in their business, and it just doesn't work that way, right? You have to build that internal integrity and that internal confidence, and then you can go out and build the business.
I think you, did you see Becca's face on that one? I think you kind of justified my dear friend in the upper corner there. She's like, any comments, Becca?
Well,
You really hit the nail on the head there for her, Kristine.
I guess my question, I understand what you're saying about building the habits, but don't you have to start doing business too, like even before? I mean, doesn't building the business also help you learn to be confident in doing whatever those things are?
Yeah. So like, for example, if one of your outcomes is to bring, 5 new clients into your program, or onboard, one new, retainer client, or to get out to sell X amount of units of something. If that's your outcome for that month, then what are 1, 2, 3 habits that will move you towards that outcome? So for our clients, who are mostly building online coaching businesses, maybe one of the habits they engage in is that they reach out to and have a conversation with 5 people each day, right? It's uncomfortable. Maybe they don't want to do it. Maybe they're not sure what they're going to say. It feels scary, but then they do those 5 reach outs on Monday. And then they do those 5 reach outs on Tuesday. And now they're engaging in a habit that is building that internal integrity. And at the same time, it's the aligned action that's moving them towards the outcome of signing on 5 clients that month.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have someone come into your world and realize that entrepreneurship, they're doing it because it's someone else's idea of success and not really theirs?
Yeah. Yeah. We've actually had a couple of clients who, through our program, were like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't love it. It's not exciting. I don't have fun. I feel I want to do something. Usually they want to be a coach, but they don't necessarily want to be a business owner. And we've actually had a couple of clients choose that for themselves, and really, it can sometimes be quite a process for them to make that choice, especially if they've put in a lot of time and money and energy and effort into building a business. It's hard to let go of sunk costs. But when they really tune into what it is that they want, which is a big part of our realign process, really tuning into what it is that you want for yourself in your life. When they get to that place, they can't not listen to their intuition. They can't ignore it anymore. And they make the choice to do something different. And we've had a couple of clients do that and then become coaches in someone else's program. And I mean, it's like you can see the transformation in them. You can see, like, there's a spark to them. They're ignited by it. They love it. They're getting to do something they love without the doing all of these other things they thought they were supposed to do in order to be in their true nature and serve their purpose. So yeah, we occasionally we have entrepreneurs come into our program who decide they don't want to be entrepreneurs. And before we had a real emphasis on supporting entrepreneurs, we would have people come into our program. We've had a couple of 9-to-5ers who, I don't know, if just being in our world and hearing us talk about what we do, we've had some who are now building their own businesses. So we've had it go both ways. And any way is fine, right? It's really you tuning into the outcomes that you want, really choosing for yourself the life that you want to live. And when you do that and you connect to that, you can trust it. You can trust that whatever decision you're making is going to work out for you.
It's funny you say that. Years ago, I used to sell franchises, and like another lifetime ago before I got into the industry I'm in now. And so I dealt a lot with new business owners, right? And I've scoured the internet to try and find the book. I cannot find it. I need to find a really good librarian and do one of those. Okay, this is what the book's about. What is it called? But there was a book that was out there. Someone had published it. And basically the gist of his entire book was, just because you're really good at what you do doesn't mean you can run a business, right? Just because you're a great cook doesn't mean you can run a restaurant. Just because you're a great salesperson doesn't mean you can go be a realtor. Just because, and that I think is one of those hurdles that people face when they're kind of at the top of their game, and you start feeling like, why am I not just doing this for myself? Mm-hmm. But the truth is, not everyone's made out to own and run a business. I mean, running a business is more than just selling homes, right? I mean, you can't. And I think we see it a lot, especially, I don't know, here in Florida, we're seeing it a lot with in the medical field, right? A lot of doctors went off and opened their own private practices. And now in a lot of the Florida area, you're seeing a lot of them are now going back under the umbrellas of the larger hospitals and the larger organizations, because they've realized it just doesn't make sense to build that way. It doesn't make sense to try and do it all themselves. And so it's kind of the cost of working for someone else is the peace of mind, I think, for a lot of owners or people who've tried business ownership. But yeah, someday I'll find the name of the book.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think a big part of that too is when you decide to become an entrepreneur, there's chances are you did not go to university to get a degree in entrepreneurship. When I was in college several years ago, there was the opportunity to go to business school, but there was no entrepreneur degree. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a teenager. And so when I first went to college, I went into the business track at my school, and it was the most horribly boring, awful, like statistics. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, this is not, I just want to own a little vegetarian restaurant. I don't want to do statistics. So I dropped out of business and I went into women's studies because I was like, this is interesting. So my degree is in women's studies. It's not even in entrepreneurship. And then the moment I graduated college, I started my first business and I figured it out. And it was good. I owned a coffee house and juice bar in Florida. I had it for 4 years. And it was really just me just honestly winging it, just figuring out as I went along. And I see this a lot with the entrepreneurs we work with, is that they're really good at what they do. We've got life coaches and nutritionists and fitness instructors and granola makers. And, we have people who are really, really good at what they do. That's what they've studied. That's what they went to school for. They didn't go to school to figure out how to build the back end systems of their business. No one has taught them that. And so in order for an entrepreneur to be successful in this day and age, she's got to find that support. She's got to find that guidance for how to actually build it. Because there's a lot of nuts and bolts. It's not just creating the product or creating the course, right? You've got it. There's operations, there's legal, there's financial, there's building systems and processes, there's hiring and firing, there's, how to be a leader for your team. There's a lot that goes into the entrepreneurship that most people just haven't been exposed to, unless maybe your parents were entrepreneurs or, like I said, you went to school for it. Chances are it's all uncharted territory and you're good at what you do, but then you've got to find the support to figure the rest out. And honestly, scale it as fast as you can so you can hire the help that can do all the stuff that's not in your zone of genius. So you can just keep doing the coaching or, selling the thing or making the pies, whatever the thing is that you're really good at.
Mm-hmm.
I've also heard the saying recently that you should, just because you're good at it doesn't mean you should do it. Not necessarily in the entrepreneur world, but there are things that you are good at that you don't necessarily love doing. And sometimes people go towards what they're good at, whether it's in a business or working for someone, because they have good habits, they have a good ability in it, but it's not necessarily what's helping them to thrive. So there's that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in their zone of competence, right? They can do it. Yeah. But is it bringing them joy? Is it, really allowing them to thrive and fully express who they are? It's a good point.
And then, is it financially viable? I imagine that you go through a lot of that kind of stuff as far as, I really love making straw dolls. I don't. I'm just saying, like, there might be something that I might really love to do, but like, there's just not a way that would actually
work,
support a business, for example, or anything.
And again, I think that comes to having good support and guidance in how to make that work and really what you need to make it work, right? Not everybody needs a 10K month, right? This is a big thing we see in the online world. 10K months. Some people could create a business that provides an extra $2,000 a month for their family. And that's enough, right? It's enough that they're paying off debt or they're putting into retirement. Some people, 5K months is a nice, comfortable lifestyle for them. Like, not everybody has the same goals when it comes to their businesses too. And sometimes, people just want to build their business for the love of it, for the fun of it, right? They want to sell the straw dolls and they don't care how much they make, right? They just want to make them and share them with other people, right? And I think if you're coming at your business from that perspective, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun. There's other things you can do to go make money, right? And if the thing that you really love to do, that you just have so much fun doing, you lose track of time, it just feels so joyful. Like, do that for fun. You don't have to make it into a business.
It doesn't have to be a business.
Yeah. Yeah. I've learned that the hard way too. Like, I tend to be someone as the achiever. It's like, well, if I like it and I'm good at it, shouldn't I just, do it as a business? So I was a Pilates instructor for 10 years and I had my own studio. And when I let that go, I started going to yoga, and people would ask me, are you going to get your teaching, your yoga teacher certification? I was like, no, I am not turning this into a business. I am just going to be a student. I don't need every time I post one of my cakes, I make these ridiculously extravagant cakes with my niece and my nephew. And every time we post them online, people say, you should open a bakery. I'm like, no, that would take all the joy out of cake making for me. If this was my job, I would not want, it's too stressful. It's too much. When I'm just in here with a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old and we're getting messy and there's flour everywhere and we're sneaking bites of cake and frosting all day, that's so much fun for me. And it's I don't want to open a bakery to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It does sometimes take the joy out of it, all the mundane day-to-day stuff that comes along with running a business. And I think sometimes people forget that, that it's not always all rainbows and sunshine.
No, it is definitely not all rainbows and sunshine. That's why we encourage our clients to hire early, at least get a virtual or local assistant that can take those mundane tasks off your plate. Because that's in their zone of genius. They love doing that stuff, so that you can stay in the creativity of your business. You can stay as the creator, the visionary, the leader of your business, and not be getting bogged down in the day-to-day tasks.
Yeah, that's in line with what sorry, Becca.
I can wait. I'll probably remember what it was.
Write it down. I was going to say that
Gotcha.
was in line kind of with some of what we had shared on our recap trip when we came back from Vegas. So we went to a conference recently. It was a writers conference, and there was what do they call it? High something panel. High, basically all the like the 7-figure income authors that are, not all of them, but a handful of them that are part of our group. And it was funny because high powered authors, I think is it called. I can't remember. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was.
And one of the questions that was posed to the panel was how much time is spent doing the admin, the marketing, the this, the that, and how much of this is actually spent doing the creating, like the writing of the books. And it was really interesting listening to all of their responses. I don't think one of them said that they did it all themselves, right? Everyone, even the ones that were like,
Not by then.
about 30% of my day is spent doing that, but that's handling the people who are doing it for me. Because otherwise there would not be room for me to be the creative that I want to be. And so like there's this point where there has to be a shift in the business. What am I going to hire out for? In fact, I think there was even a session on that, right? When and how to start hiring out for some of these things, because it is so important early in the setup of a business to not do it all themselves.
Yes. Yeah, because then it just leads to exhaustion and burnout.
Yeah.
You can't do it all yourselves, especially not what we see with a lot of our clients. They're moms, and they're either moms of kids or they're women who also have parents, right? A lot of them are in between the two, and you can't spend all of your time doing every single aspect of your business. Maybe in the first few months, right? And you're in that, getting it off the ground phase where it's just, you're like, the duck with their feet underwater. You got to get it off the ground, right? But you can't stay at that pace. You can't keep at that level and expect the business to really expand. So yeah, we teach our clients how to hire, when to hire, and to start setting up the right processes and systems from the very beginning, so that the moment you're like, okay, I got to get some help here, that you already have everything in place. That person comes in, you go, here you go. This is what I need you to do. Right. And it's already, it's ready for them. I see too many women afraid to hire because they're afraid of the money. Maybe they don't think they have enough. They have to reach a certain amount of money before they can hire someone else. But hiring a virtual assistant can be an actually relatively inexpensive expense in your business that can free up not just time, but a lot of your mental space, right? If you're not thinking about all the things that need to get done, you're opening yourself back up to your own creativity, right? You're creating both that like physical space, because you're not doing all the things, but you're creating that mental space, because what your business needs more than anything is for you to be the creator, to be the visionary, to be the one who's, especially as a creative, having that time to write, to draw, to play, to, make the straw dolls, right? You've got to have that time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was on that topic, but also going back to the other, bringing them together, just how much time there is in the day and how much energy there is. And when you were talking about like, oh, well, you could do this as a business, you could do this as a business. Well, some people I know have a lot of interests and like to do lots of things. And and she's nodding right now. And like you can't do all of it at once anyway. You could do something and then something else and something else. But if you don't want to kill yourself, you have to make those choices. Okay, but like my son will say, I know it's not on your list, because in the day-to-day, I'll say, okay, I understand that that's important to you, or I understand, okay, this might be something we do eventually, but it's not on my list today. Because I have to say no to some things, whether I want to or not, and whether it feels natural or not to say no. But like acknowledging limitations, especially if we want to be healthy people, like you said, we're not just a business person. We have other aspects of our lives that we need to be very mindful of if we want to be really happy.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's setting good boundaries, and it's also recognizing that, recognizing what's important to you, right? What are your priorities? What do you, again, getting back to like that clarity of like what it is that you really want to create for yourself. And then being able to, I just lost my train of thought. Setting boundaries and, okay, ask the next question. I'll come back to it.
I was going to
Sorry,
say, can you?
it's a little late. It's a little late in the evening, and my brain is like,
That's
it's ready to wind down.
It is.
I was going to say, can you just briefly explain what happens when someone comes into your program? Is it modules, or is it their one-on-one time? How does that work?
Yeah. I will answer in a second because I remembered what the thing was, and that's balance. And
Yeah.
balance is not doing everything equally. You can't. There are times in your life when your family really needs you, and they're your priority, and there's a lot of time and energy and effort that goes into them. There are times when your work really needs you, and there's a lot of time and energy and effort that goes into that. Balance comes when we are in the present moment, right? If you're with your family, but you're thinking about your business, you're scattered, you're out of balance. If you're in your business, but you're thinking about, feeling guilty about not being with your kids, you're out of balance, right? Balance
love
isn't
that.
doing it all equally. It's being in the present moment, right? That can create so much more ease and peace within us when we just allow ourselves to be in the moment that we're in. If I'm with my family, I'm with my family. I'm not checking my emails. I'm not looking at, Slack. I'm not doing the things for my business. But when I'm working my business, everybody knows that's my boundary. I'm in my office. It's work time. Okay, so what does it look like when someone comes into our program? When you come into our program, first thing you do is a Enneagram typing session with my sister. So my twin sister is the COO and Enneagram teacher in our company. And she does a one-to-one with you to help you understand your type, your lens, right? What pair of glasses are you putting on every day? And she gives you some coaching around that. And then you come into our program. We have a private Facebook group, and then we also have an online course. Our head coach and our client success director, who's my best friend, Keely, she brings you through an onboarding call. So you fill out a form so that we know what it is that you want to create. What are the outcomes you want for your business, for your health, your relationships, and your spiritual and personal development? So we know exactly where you are and where you want to be. So she does an onboarding call with you to discover all of that. And then we do 3 weekly live coaching sessions. On Tuesdays, we do a collaborative coaching session where it's really any and all mindset issues, business-related issues, whatever people need help and support with, we cover on that call. On Wednesdays, I do the realign process, which is our signature process for creating the outcomes that you want and releasing the resistance that you have to having those outcomes. And then on Friday, we do an outcome setting call. And that is really tuning you into your priorities. So your 90-day vision, what you need to do each month, and then really breaking it down into each week and each day. And we actually created a planner that goes along with that. So we work you through that planner. So yeah, we have the online course. We have our live coaching calls. We also have the opportunity for people to do a deep dive. So doing deeper inner work with our coaches on a one-to-one basis. And this year we're launching a business incubator. So we'll be creating small group cohorts so that people can get really hands-on, intensive deep dive work with our offer coach, our productivity coach, with me and the other coaches as they build their offer and build their business.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And what a perfect way to end our session, really, because we have almost hit 9 o'clock.
Yes, thank you.
Kristine, you've got a pretty awesome program that you put together. And really, so thank you again so much for spending time here with us today. So one last question, and then we'll let you go. If we have an entrepreneur that is part of our group and they are interested in getting in touch with you all, or enrolling in any of your current offerings, is your website really the best place to kind of direct them to for all that?
Yes, you can go to our website and check out the, you can, check out what we've got for entrepreneurs. But also you just shoot me a Facebook message.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great way for us to connect. So I am the only Kristie Kolzing you will find on Facebook. So as long as you type it, you'll
That must
find
be
me.
nice.
I know, right? There's
like a million.
Yeah, there's no confusing who I am. So you can find me on Facebook, send me a message, and then we can connect that way as well.
My husband has a random cousin that just married a Nicole. Otherwise, I used to be able to say the same thing. So.
Oh.
It's those unique names, but yeah, awesome. So random Facebook message out to Kristine. I'll get you in touch with her and her group, really. So very cool. Thank you again so much for spending time with us this week. A lot of really awesome information.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that I think can definitely help a lot of our members of our group. So thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All right, ladies. That wraps up week 27. So we will see you guys, I don't even know when, 2 weeks from now with someone. Becca, can you just tell us what's next? Because I'm clearly not the schedule person.
On February 1st, we have Annalie coming to talk about holistic health and things like that. So
awesome. Awesome. And we'll get the rest of the events scheduled for February up in our group shortly. So you guys will see those that are coming up soon. All right, ladies, have a great night. It is 9:00 on the dot. Look at that for timing. We do this like this. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Good night.